The rice harvest is crucial for our village's survival this year, more than ever. We need everyone's cooperation.
It's important to remember the traditions.
I agree, they guide us.
We need to discuss the upcoming mission. It's critical.
I understand the stakes. I've been thinking about the challenges.
We've established a secure perimeter, but the terrain is challenging. We need to be cautious.
There was no one who could do this kind of work. No one in the world.
The most important thing is that we must always remember where we came from, our roots.
So, what are we going to do about this situation?
I'm not sure. I've been thinking about it all day.
The late afternoon sun draped the countryside in a veil of weary gold, the kind of light that lingered just long enough to remind one of the day's end before surrendering to the dark. A man trudged along the narrow dirt path with heavy steps, his eyes swollen and bloodshot from nights of sleepless wandering. For days he had searched tirelessly, through the fields, down by the riverbanks, across the meadows, and even deep into the forest, where the air grew damp and heavy. Yet no trace of his wife could be found. She had disappeared as though swallowed by the earth itself. The dread in his chest grew heavier with each passing hour. Neighbors whispered of the worst, that perhaps she had chosen to end her suffering by throwing herself into the river. The mere thought made him tremble. He wanted to dismiss their cruel speculations, but the silence of her absence made hope seem like a fragile, breaking thread. His mind returned again and again to the last day he saw her. That afternoon had erupted into chaos. His stepmother and half-sister had pointed accusing fingers at his wife, blaming her for the missing money that had been set aside for her medical treatment. Their voices rose sharp with bitterness, and in the storm of accusations, his own anger betrayed him. He remembered himself standing there, his face burning, demanding explanations from the woman he loved. Instead of defending her as he should have, he let suspicion seep into his heart. Her eyes had filled with tears, not of guilt, but of heartbreak. She tried to speak, to tell him something, but the harsh words of his family drowned her out. His own silence, his failure to protect her, cut her deeper than their cruelty. That night, she left without a word, and by morning, she was gone. Now, days later, he could barely stand the weight of regret. Every corner of their home whispered of her absence. The chair she used to sit on, the clothes she had folded neatly before leaving, the faint scent of her hair oil still lingering on the pillow. Everything mocked him for not trusting her when she needed him most. As he stumbled along the road, his closest friend walked beside him. This friend, loyal and steadfast, had refused to let him search alone. "Don't despair," the friend said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "She may only be hiding somewhere safe. Perhaps she has taken refuge in a villager's hut or in a cabin in the forest. Not every disappearance means death." But the husband shook his head, despair pulling him deeper. "You don't understand," he whispered, his voice breaking. "She left because of me. I accused her. I doubted her. I should have stood by her, but I didn't. And now she's gone." His friend frowned, slowing his pace. You keep blaming her for the missing money, but have you really considered, that maybe she wasn't the one who took it? Could it have been your stepmother or your sister? Think about it. Why would your wife steal money meant for her own treatment? Doesn't that make no sense at all? The man stopped walking, stunned into silence. His friend's words pierced through the fog of guilt and confusion. It was true. Why would she take money that was supposed to help her heal? Could it be that the very people who blamed her had taken it themselves? The possibility gnawed at him, deepening his regret until it was almost unbearable. The friend, seeing the torment in his eyes, sighed and decided to share a piece of his own story. "Listen," he began, "you're not the only one burdened by family wounds. Let me tell you something I haven't told many." The man looked at him, weary but curious. "Do you remember when I bought a piece of land last year?" the friend asked. "At the time, I thought it was just a business deal, but later, I discovered the seller, the man who handed me the deed, was more than a stranger. He was my father." The husband blinked in disbelief. "Your father? But I thought you never knew him." "I didn't," the friend replied bitterly. "My mother raised me alone. She told me that when I was a baby, she and this man, they had a relationship. But when she became pregnant, he abandoned her. She struggled for years, and she never spoke of him until recently. Only after I met him by chance did I realize the truth." "And what happened?" the husband asked cautiously. The friend's voice hardened. "I demanded answers. He denied everything. Even when I showed him the DNA results proving, with 99.9% certainty that I was his son, he spat in my face. He said the test could be forged, that my mother must have been with someone else. He looked me in the eyes and told me I was nothing to him." The husband felt a cold chill run down his spine. The anguish in his friend's voice mirrored his own pain. "You see," the friend continued, "sometimes the people who should protect us, the ones bound by blood, are the very people who hurt us most. You are not the only one betrayed by family, but I'll tell you this, running away won't solve anything. You must find your wife. And when you do, you must hold on to her with everything you have left. Don't make the mistake I made of letting a parent's cruelty define your worth. Your wife needs you, not your doubts." The words sank deep into the man's heart. He looked at his friend with renewed determination. Yes, his wife was out there somewhere, wounded by his mistrust but still alive. He had to believe that, and he would not rest until he found her, no matter how far the path took him. That night, under a sky freckled with stars, he sat outside his small home, listening to the silence that pressed against his chest. His mind wandered between the pain of betrayal and the fragile hope of reunion. In the distance, the forest loomed dark and endless, as though guarding secrets he was yet to uncover. And somewhere beyond those trees, his wife waited. The morning air carried a damp chill, heavy with the scent of earth still wet from last night's rain. The man woke before dawn, his body weary but his heart restless. Sleep had become a stranger to him, replaced by endless hours of replaying the moment his wife walked out of their lives. He could still see her eyes brimming with tears, her hands trembling as she packed the few belongings she dared to take. Every time he closed his eyes, that image returned, her silhouette fading into the darkness while his voice, sharp with anger, echoed in the background. His friend had stayed the night, insisting he would not leave until they found some trace of her. Over breakfast, a simple bowl of rice and pickled vegetables, the husband confessed the crushing fear gnawing at him. What if she never comes back? What if I never get the chance to tell her I'm sorry? The friend met his gaze firmly. Then we will find her. We don't wait for miracles to come knocking. We create them. She is out there, alive, and she needs you. You must believe that. Together they set out again, walking the winding paths that cut through the forest. The trees towered above them, their branches weaving together to form a canopy that dimmed the morning light. the sound of birdsong mixed with the rustling of leaves, a stark contrast to the heaviness pressing on the man's heart. They stopped at every hut and farmstead, asking strangers if they had seen a woman traveling alone. Some shook their heads. Others offered vague suggestions. Perhaps she had taken the road toward the river, or maybe she had sought shelter at the edge of the village. Each uncertain answer left him more desperate, yet he clung to the smallest shred of hope. As they rested by a stream, the friend broke the silence. "Do you know why I push you so hard to find her? Because I envy you." The husband looked at him, puzzled. "You still have someone worth searching for," the friend explained quietly. "I spent years searching for my father, only to find he wanted nothing to do with me. Even when the truth stared him in the face, he denied me. You, at least, have a wife who may still love you. She left not because she hated you, but because she was wounded. That pain can be healed, but rejection from a parent, that wound never closes." The man felt a pang of sympathy. "Why do you think he refuses you? The DNA test proves it beyond doubt." The friend clenched his fists, bitterness seeping into his tone. Pride, shame, cowardice. He would rather brand me a liar than admit to the world that he abandoned his child. He claims my mother was unfaithful, that the test is forged, every excuse imaginable, but never the truth. He paused, his eyes clouded with hurt. "Do you know what it feels like to stand before the man who gave you life and hear him say you don't belong to him?" The husband lowered his gaze. "Perhaps not in the same way, but I do know what it feels like to betray the one person who believed in me. That is why I must find her, no matter the cost." By noon, they arrived at a cluster of homes near the edge of the village. An elderly woman mentioned seeing a young woman walking toward the hills carrying a small bundle. Her words ignited a spark of hope in the husband's heart. He quickened his pace, his friend following close behind. They climbed the rocky path leading to the hills, each step heavy with anticipation. When they reached a small clearing, they found signs of someone's recent presence. A fire pit still warm, footprints pressed into the damp soil, and scraps of fabric caught on a bush. The man's heart raced. Could this be hers? He knelt to touch the fabric. It was familiar. The corner of the shawl his wife often wore when the evenings grew cold. His hands trembled as he clutched it to his chest. "She was here," he whispered, his voice breaking. "She was here." But the trail ended abruptly at the mouth of the forest, swallowed by tangled undergrowth. Despite hours of searching, they found no further trace. The sun dipped low, and exhaustion forced them to retreat. That night, back in the village, the husband sat silently by the fire, the shawl resting in his lap. His friend watched him closely before speaking. "You must prepare yourself. Tomorrow, I plan to confront my father again. I want you to come with me. Perhaps seeing another man's brokenness will give you strength for your own battle." The husband hesitated. "I don't know if I can face someone else's pain when my own feels unbearable." His friend shook his head. "Pain shared is pain lessened. Besides, your story and mine are tied by the same thread: family, betrayal, denial, the longing for love. You may find answers for your own heart in my struggle." The next morning, they traveled together to the town where the friend's father lived. The journey was long, and the husband found himself torn between the desperate need to resume searching for his wife and the duty to stand by his friend. As they walked through the bustling streets, every face reminded him of her absence. Every couple holding hands, a cruel reminder of what he had lost. At last, they reached a modest house at the edge of the town. The friend paused at the gate, his jaw clenched. "This is it," he said. "Are you ready?" The husband nodded. They stepped inside to find the man's father sitting in the courtyard, sipping tea with an air of indifference. His hair was graying, his posture proud, but his eyes were cold as stone. When he saw them approach, his expression hardened. "You again," the father said flatly, setting down his cup. "I told you before, I am not your father. Why do you insist on bothering me?" The friend's voice shook with restrained fury. "Because the truth cannot be denied. The DNA test proves it. My mother's word proves it. Even your own features, your eyes, your hands, they mirror mine. You can't erase blood, no matter how hard you try." The older man sneered. "DNA can be forged. Women can lie. You think a piece of paper makes you my son? You are nothing to me. Whoever raised you, let them keep you. I owe you nothing." The husband felt his chest tighten at the cruelty in those words. He wanted to speak, to defend his friend, but the anguish in the younger man's eyes silenced him. The friend took a step closer, his voice trembling. "Do you know what it cost me to stand here? To admit I wanted a father? All my life I dreamed of hearing you call me son, of feeling that I belonged somewhere. But you spit on me, as though I am dirt beneath your feet. You speak of lies, but it is you who lies to yourself, too proud to admit your sin." The father's face remained unmoved, though a flicker of discomfort crossed his eyes. "Leave, both of you. Do not return." With those words, he turned his back, retreating into the house. The slam of the door echoed like a final verdict. The friend stood frozen, his body trembling with rage and heartbreak. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then, at last, the husband placed a hand on his shoulder. "You may not have his acceptance," he said softly, "but you are more of a man than he will ever be. Blood may bind, but it is love that makes a father. And love is something he will never give." Tears welled in the friend's eyes, but he did not let them fall. Instead, he nodded, drawing strength from the quiet solidarity beside him. As they walked away from the house, the husband realized something profound. His friend's rejection had carved a deep wound, yet he still stood, unbroken. If his friend could endure such cruelty, then perhaps he too could find the courage to face his own failures. His wife was out there, waiting, not for perfection, but for his love and repentance. That night, as they rested under the stars on their journey home, the husband whispered into the darkness, as though she could hear him, "Wait for me. I will find you, and when I do, I will never let you go again." The dawn broke with a quiet stillness, the kind that felt like the world itself was holding its breath. The man awoke on the cold earth, dew clinging to his clothes, the shawl of his missing wife still clutched tightly in his hands. He stared at the sky, the pale light of morning spreading across it, and whispered a prayer he had never dared to speak aloud, that today would bring him back to her. His friend stirred beside him, eyes heavy with the weight of yesterday's rejection. Though both men carried wounds, one of love, the other of blood, they rose with the same determination, bound by the promise that neither would abandon the other. They returned to the village following faint whispers of her presence. Each step carried a mix of dread and hope. At a roadside stall, they met a farmer who claimed he had seen a young woman walking toward the riverbank days earlier, carrying only a small bag and moving with the air of someone broken. The husband's pulse quickened, fear gripping him like a vice. The river. The thought of her near the water was unbearable. He could not shake the image of her giving in to despair, letting the current claim her. He broke into a run, his legs burning, lungs screaming. Yet he did not slow until he reached the river's edge. There, on a stone near the bank, lay a pair of shoes. His breath caught in his throat. They were hers. For a moment the world blurred, his chest convulsing as panic threatened to crush him. But then, faint footprints in the mud veered away from the water, leading toward a thicket of bamboo. Hope surged through him again. She had not surrendered. She had walked on. He followed, calling her name, his voice hoarse but desperate, echoing through the trees. Hours passed until finally, in a clearing shaded by tall grasses, he saw her. She was seated on the ground, knees drawn to her chest, her shawl torn and dirty, her eyes hollow from days of solitude. For a moment he could not move, afraid that if he did, she might vanish like a mirage. But then she looked up, and their eyes met. The dam inside him broke. He rushed forward, falling to his knees before her, tears spilling freely as he reached for her hands. "I was wrong," he whispered, the words tumbling out in gasps. "I should never have doubted you. I should have protected you from their cruelty, not added to it. Please forgive me." Her lips trembled, her eyes filling with tears that shimmered in the dim light. For a long silence, she said nothing, as though measuring the depth of his remorse. Then at last she spoke, her voice fragile but steady. "You believed them. When I needed you most, you turned against me." His heart shattered at her words, yet he nodded. "Yes, I failed you, but I swear to you I will never fail again. I will stand against anyone, even my own blood, if they try to harm you. Just come home. Let me spend the rest of my life proving my love." Her tears fell then, rolling down her cheeks as she leaned into him. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her as though she were the only anchor keeping him from drowning. In that embrace, the weight of days of guilt and anguish lifted, replaced by the fragile beginnings of healing. Together, they returned to the village, her steps unsteady, but her spirit buoyed by his renewed devotion. His friend walked beside them silently, watching the reunion with quiet relief, though his own heart remained heavy. The village buzzed with whispers as they passed, some surprised, others scornful, but he ignored them all. The only thing that mattered was her hand in his, warm and real. When they reached the family home, the confrontation he dreaded awaited. His stepmother and half-sister stood at the door, eyes sharp and accusatory. "So you've brought her back," the stepmother sneered. "Still clinging to the thief who stole our money?" The husband's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, shielding his wife behind him. "It is time we end this lie. I accused her once, and it nearly destroyed us. But no more. Tell me the truth. Where is the money?" The half-sister shifted uncomfortably, her gaze flickering away. The stepmother glared, lips pressed into a thin line. Silence stretched, heavy and accusing, until finally the friend spoke. "I have seen this before. Lies layered upon lies until even guilt becomes unbearable. Do not bury yourselves deeper. The truth will surface, whether you confess it or not." The stepmother's face reddened, but before she could retort, the half-sister broke down, tears spilling over as she confessed. "It was me. I took it. I wanted new clothes, and when I was caught, I let Mother blame her. I was afraid. I didn't think it would come to this." The wife gasped softly, her hand tightening in her husband's. The husband's face turned pale with fury, but his anger was not for his wife this time. He turned on them both, his voice like thunder. "You let her suffer humiliation, isolation, and despair, all for your selfishness. And I was blind enough to believe you. Shame on you both, but greater shame on me." The stepmother tried to protest, but he silenced her with a look so fierce she fell back. "From this day on, your poison will have no hold over us. If you cannot respect my wife, then we are no longer family." With that, he took his wife's hand and led her inside, leaving the stunned silence of his accusers behind. That night, as they sat together in their humble home, he made her a promise beneath the flickering glow of the oil lamp. "I will spend every day making up for the hurt I caused. You are my heart, my home, my only truth." She looked at him, eyes glistening, and for the first time in days she smiled. A fragile smile, but one that spoke of hope returning. Meanwhile, his friend lingered at the doorway, lost in thought. Watching their reconciliation filled him with joy, yet also sharpened the ache in his own heart. He had stood before his father and been denied, cast aside like a stranger. No apology awaited him, no embrace to heal his wounds. Still, as he turned to leave, he felt a strange sense of peace. Perhaps, he thought, family is not always the one you are born into, but the one that chooses you. He walked under the stars, remembering his foster mother's unwavering love, the way she had defended him before the man who rejected him. She was proof enough that he was worthy of love, no matter what his father said. With that realization, he stood taller, no longer shackled by the chains of longing for a man who would never accept him. Days turned into weeks, and the village slowly forgot the scandal. The husband and wife rebuilt their life, planting seeds not only in the soil of their fields, but in the fragile soil of their marriage. Each day was a step toward trust restored. His friend continued his own journey, carrying the scars of rejection, but also the strength born from surviving it. One evening, as the three of them sat together sharing a simple meal, the husband raised his cup. "To survival," he said, "to the ones we have lost and the ones we have found, to the truth that nearly broke us, but also set us free." They drank together, their eyes meeting with unspoken understanding. For though their battles were different, they had walked through fire and emerged, if not whole, then stronger. The wife leaned against her husband's shoulder, her laughter soft and tentative. The friend smiled faintly, a glimmer of peace in his weary eyes. And though the future remained uncertain, though wounds would take time to heal and shadows of the past might return, the night was filled with a quiet promise that love, no matter how battered, could endure. That even in the face of betrayal and denial, the heart could still find its way home.